One of the most asked about baits this time of the year in our store is the blade bait. Now, for some reason, winter comes, water cools, and everybody, jumps on this bandwagon. And maybe not for some reason. It's a great way to catch fish in the winter.
Absolutely.
But it's also an amazing all-around bait that you guys should definitely have in your arsenal. So today, I decided to solicit the best blade bait fisherman I know, Hippie, and we're gonna break these things down. So, you ready?
Let's do it, man.
All right, let's do it. Welcome to the Hookup Tackle. The Hookup Tackle is the world's largest showcase of Megabass products, featuring baits and colors not found at any other dealer. The Hookup also offers a wide display of OSP, Evergreen, Deps, Lucky Craft, Jackall, and many more. The Hookup Tackle is owned and operated by family, is staffed by guides and verified tackle nerds who love helping anglers elevate their craft. If you're in the Phoenix area, we'd love to have you stop by our showroom and check out the wonderful world of Megabass and the Hookup for yourself. If you shop online, there are almost 10,000 SKUs of Megabass products alone, with hundreds of other companies and new products being added daily. So next time you're looking for that hard-to-find bait, that color your fish have never seen before, or maybe you just want to elevate your game, look at thehookuptackle.com. All right, welcome back, my friends. I am the Tackle Otaku on Instagram. I am being joined by my buddy Julius Maisie. We call him Hippie. You guys can call him whatever you want to call him.
How's everybody doing?
What's up, dude? Thanks for joining me.
Of course.
Being filmed, of course, by my buddy Jeffrey the King. We are the Hookup Tackle USA. So today we are going to break down blade baits, the Hookup Tackle style.
Yeah.
Blade bait fishing.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So these are a bait that I know you've been fishing a lot on your own over the last few years. Mm-hmm. So if you guys don't know Julius, make sure you follow him on Instagram. But he is a guide for us. He's on the water pretty much every day, either fishing for himself in tournaments or with clients. And this is an important client bait for you as well. What is it about a blade bait that you love?
So when that water temperature drops and those fish get finicky, it gets cold, like they don't eat a lot of reaction baits, like it's internal sounds, like almost they shy away from it, right? So blade bait creates this very unique sound, this tight vibration under the water that they're not really used to, around here. So, a couple years back, I grabbed a few of them and started experimenting, and anywhere from 5 feet of water to, 100 feet of water, I've, made this bait really versatile for me, and it's really cool, man. It's amazing.
You definitely think that there's something about this bait that gets you bit that other baits aren't going to get you bit on that same day.
Right. So I mean, before I found this, I always experimented with rattle traps, trying to find a silent trap that created that vibration, because I knew they wanted that, but I couldn't find a blade bait or something that could mimic it. So I was always trying that, and then some of these JDM blade baits fit, checked every box that I was looking for, and lo and behold, I started playing with it, and it was amazing, man.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is before I get to that, let's make sure everybody knows what it is that we're talking about.
Yeah, of course.
Right? So if you're not familiar with a blade bait, here's a look at the OSP Over Ride. Now, this is one of your favorite blade baits.
I love that one.
Right? Yep, me too. So just to give you guys a quick rundown on what a blade bait actually is, it is generally a thin piece of metal on the back. Now, it could also be a circuit board like Jackall does on some. It could be like a hardened foam, as some companies do. But it's basically a thin piece of metal as the back, and then thicker metal or lead or some type of weighted material down around the front and the belly. It basically has two purposes. It can be used as a lipless, where if you just cast and wind this thing, it is going to vibrate through just like a lipless or rattle trap, like what you mentioned. But it can also be jigged. So a lot of these are designed to kind of lift and drop and yo-yo.
Yeah.
So each bait does different things. It's interesting, as we were talking this morning about doing this topic, you were asking me, like, dude, what were some of the throwback blade baits that you used, back in the day? And honestly, there were things like the Silver Buddy.
Yeah.
It was like super old school stuff that we used for very small windows because they weren't sophisticated. They basically had one job.
Right.
It was kind of like, a heavy jigging spoon.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Like they had one job. You couldn't really do a whole lot of things with them. They were like very like one purpose. Oh, there's fish on the graph. Let me drop something down and lift and lower it.
But they got bit.
But they got bit.
Yeah.
But then that was really the only thing they did.
Yeah.
But nowadays, you know, it's like all things, you know, JDM, they try to find ways to like enhance it and make them more multi-use, and that's really kind of how you're utilizing these things. Is it?
Of course.
I mean, you said 5 to 90 feet.
Yeah.
So you must be doing a combination of cast and retrieve and jigging down in 90 feet or in the deeper water, let's just say.
Anywhere from, you know, on cacklebur flats or, you know, shallow grass flats type scenarios to where you cast it and you wind it over that stuff, or, you know, you're on a piece of structure and you've got, you know, a group of fish down there and you're watching them on, you know, your sonar and you're just yo-yoing it, you know, whether it's vertical or I back off the spot, make a long cast, and I just short little aggressive hops, you know, and that's one of my favorite ways to catch them is just that short little pop.
Cool.
And that one does it really well.
All right, cool. So let's break down kind of our favorite. We are both on the same page as far as the baits that we like.
Yeah.
But let's break it down and talk about some of our favorite blade baits.
Yeah.
And let's talk about some of the gear and riggings that we use, so that, you know, if you guys are wanting to add this in the arsenal or just kind of, you know, elevate your blade bait fishing, hopefully this will give some insight.
Yeah.
Sound good?
Let's jump
okay.
into it.
So here, let's start here. Let me hand this over to you. So since we started talking about it, this is the OSP Over Ride, and this is, for me, generally my starting point. Is this your starting point
100%,
too? Okay.
yeah.
And why?
So I just feel like this is the most versatile one, whether I'm winding it or I'm hopping it off the bottom. Most of the time, early in the season, I wind a little bit, you know, and I get on 1 or 2 bites like that, but then, you know, I carry it on for a couple months where I'm just stroking this off the bottom. Whether it's super light, you know, like an inch off the bottom, you know, and you want it to tick the structure and create that sound, or real aggressive, you know, like 3 feet up off the bottom type stuff, depending on what the fish want. But, you know, you can get this in a 1/4 to a 1/2 ounce, and that makes it so versatile for me because that's what I'm looking for, rather, or where I'm at in the water column.
Are you choosing the weight of the blade bait based on the depth of the water that you're fishing, or why are you choosing a 3/8 versus a 1/2, or?
So depending if they're eating it on the fall, I want a heavier one, you know, or if the fish are suspended, I'll throw that 1/4 over like 60 feet sometimes. It just all depends on what the fish want. You know, usually when I'm blade bait fishing, I have a 1/4 to a 1/2 tied on until I kind of get, you know, dialed in, and then I go from there.
Okay, sounds good. So let's talk about this specific bait. Hold it up for everybody to see. So as you'll notice, you know, these baits come with kind of like a miniature dual frog hook on these things. So they're not a treble hook. They're kind of this, you know, kind of this dual hook. And the purpose for that is as you're working that on the bottom, right? That front hook it'll fold up kind of underneath the bait, allowing you to bring it through a lot more cover than you could like a treble hook, like a spoon with a treble hook, right? Do you find that to be actually work as advertised?
Yeah, so I found this area that's basically like an old orchard. It's just like lots of big giant trees everywhere, and like you would never think to get a piece of metal like this through there. You're like, oh my gosh, it's gonna be gone. But the way these hooks work, I can, you know, I find these fish suspended up over these trees, so I can make a long cast and just kind of yo-yo it without hitting the bottom, you know, and I'm hitting these trees and I'm not getting hung up, because once it hits that structure, you know, it basically folds over, you know, and I can get it over that stuff and fish this bait where you could never fish a rattle trap, you know? Which is really big.
Very versatile, and something that's cool. A lot of these baits will feature multiple rigging holes. So the OSP, for instance, has 3 different holes on the back, right?
Yep.
And they all will come with the snap attached to the center hole.
Yeah.
And is that where you leave it most of the time, on that center hole?
Most of the time, that's where I like it. It's the most versatile. I think you get the most out of the bait, especially like my favorite way to fish it is the short stroke, you know, the yo-yo. So that's where I get the most action of it. But there is times where, you know, you can come to the front and that's going to tighten the action, or you can go to the back and it's going to make it a lot wider. So depending on what the fish are doing, you know, play around with those settings.
Yeah. Again, if you guys are fishing on the bottom, I would probably just leave it right in that center hole.
That's where it shines.
That's going to do the best for you. It's going to also have the most balance.
Yeah.
So no matter which brand you get, whether it's the Evergreen or the Deps or the OSP, they're all going to kind of come rigged with the hole that is the most balanced for the bait.
Yeah.
Right? So if you guys are going to be lifting and dropping and having that bait do a lot of different things, keep it at that, you know, center of gravity spot.
Yeah.
As you go back or forwards, it's going to change the angle of it for your straight retrieve. So it might be better if you want something really wide, like if they're, you know, really responding like a wide square bill,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden they stop eating a square bill, would that be a good time to maybe try a wider blade bait? Just
Absolutely. If the
same
water's
places?
cold, man, this thing will surprise you. Like I said, shallow water. I've been on bites where I'm like, why aren't they eating, you know, your traditional flat-sided crankbait or certain things? And they're on that transition. There's still a few fish left up there, you know, and you throw that bait up there and, you know, you get your bites.
So with these hooks, with these dual hooks, talk to me about the hookup ratio and how they see it. Because a lot of guys that aren't familiar are going to look at that and be like, well, if it folds under the bait,
right,
how are you hooking them? Like if there's nothing down there to hook them.
So it's weird. I have a lot of them eat this bait. We were just talking about it from like head first. So I have a lot of them where I get them and just the back hook is kind of hooked on the outside of their lip. So when they see this kind of hopping, it looks like an injured shad just kind of hopping across the structure, and they come at it head first. So when they do that, they get this hook is always like on their tongue, you know, on the bottom, and then this one hooks them on the top. So they're pinned like really well. You know, they might not eat it every time like that, but I see, you know, almost 85% of the time they're eating it head first. And I've never had an issue with these hooks.
So you leave these hooks on there.
Yeah.
You don't change them out. I see a lot of guys, they split ring and treble hook, and you just leave it how it comes.
I've played with that. I'm not a big fan. Like, we'll talk about some baits that come like that for a reason, but these ones that come with these hooks, they're designed and balanced for these hooks and to be fished that way. So I wouldn't tinker.
I do the same thing.
Yeah.
Just leave it alone.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Really quick, just to, you know, one more thing with OSP. So, you know, color ranges can vary on a blade bait just like they can on a crankbait or anything else.
Of course.
One of the other things that I really dig about the OSP baits is not only do they come in your traditional like shad colors, you know, bluegill and perch type colors.
Yeah.
Everybody seems to make like a black or a darker color, which could be very effective in the winter when we get a lot of shadows. But OSP also makes a lot of matte finishes that nobody else really makes, and I never really understood why they didn't make mattes. But like that one in your hand, you know, matte Wakasagi or matte metal Hasu, like these are great colors to really stand out on. Like today, it's kind of cloudy, it's kind of like low light, and that matte finish really stands out in the water when there's not sun to hit that silver. Do you find the same thing?
First thing in the morning, like, you know, I'm always going to a matte finish bait, and then, you know, once you're on a blade bait bite, you're going to have options. As that sun comes out, it's like throwing a worm. You know, you've got different colors. It's the same thing. You know, that sun comes out, I'm going to go to something a little bit more vibrant, a little flashy. So
cool.
Yeah.
All right.
OSP makes it easy, man. They got so many colors.
Okay, so if you guys are just starting, this is where we would start, the OSP Over Ride. And if you're gonna have one, I think this is the most versatile one for you guys to use. And it'll definitely become part of your arsenal. You guys are definitely gonna have these in your box as you expand your blade bait fishing. Yeah, right?
Great starting point.
Let's talk about some other ones that you use and that you like. Talk to me about this, dudes. This is from Deps. This is the Deps Circuit Vibe.
Circuit Vibe. Yeah. So this was one of the first ones I started playing with when, you know, we first kind of started exploring this world. So I kind of learned the ropes on this bait. Again, very similar in action. They come in different colors, but the bait's going to be a little bit different because of this circuit board instead of like metal on this one. So it kind of creates, like, I kind of get in tune with these things, but it creates a different sound, like almost a faint sound when you're hopping it off the bottom rather than the metal hitting. You know, now you've got almost like plastic type material hitting, and it creates a more faint sound. So I've had it where they stop eating this one and they'll bite that one because it's almost like a, you know, I don't know if quieter is the right word, but it's something different. It's
right?
different. And sometimes that's all it takes. It's such a little, you know, tweak.
Something subtle. Well, I think it's important as we dissect some of these more like niche type products, right? Which is kind of where I'd put a blade bait. There's not one bait that's right every time you go, right? And it's the same if it's a drop shot worm or a square bill or a jackhammer, or I mean, pick your bait, right? Like there may be one bait that is almost always the best choice, but there's times when they stop eating it, right?
Exactly.
And it's nice to have some alternatives to just extend that bite past it, right? Cool.
Well, you start with, you know, a grocery bag of a couple of them, you know, and now you end up with a box, you know, just chock full of them. And, you know, I find myself digging through there looking for options and just like any technique, you gotta have options.
Yeah. So this is where you go when you just need a little different sound, little different action from the OSP. Okay.
Like as the colder it gets, the later I get into this bite, this one stays more locked in my hand.
Okay.
Yeah, towards the tail end of it.
Cool. So check those out, and again, they're available in a bunch of different sizes, different shades, bluegill shads, all the normal stuff. And Deps makes a great product. So this guy has 2 rigging holes. So the front one is going to be your most balanced. This is going to be your universal one. The back rigging hole is pretty much going to be for just a solid straight retrieve. It's going to cause the bait to be really head down, tail up, and then just a real hard, wide vibration. So so there's that one. Okay, another one that I know you love, especially because we're both like geeks for trout fishing. Right? Now this is the Evergreen Little Max. Now the Little Max historically has been kind of the blade bait in Japan. So Shinji Sato was the creator of this bait, and he made this bait very famous. Like this was the first one to really like wow people. It had the different holes. It was balanced to do 3 different actions, right? Like this is really the one that kind of started the trend. But talk to me about this guy and when you fished this guy.
Yeah, so it's funny, like I started seeing pictures of these, like, you know, on Instagram and stuff like that, and I'm like, you know, we didn't have them back then, and it's like, okay, like that was the first image of a blade bait I ever saw was the Little Max. Who knows how long ago, you know?
Right.
But that was the first one. And then, you know, I found a few of those little ones, started playing with trout. Like initially I started playing with trout with a blade bait before even bass. And that was the one I used. Again, super tight vibration on it, but it's a good one.
Yeah. So do you find that, like I know we've talked about this, and there's something about this bait that trout love.
Yeah, I don't know why, but that's the best trout one. You know, it's just.
And maybe it could be colors, because Evergreen does make some, you know, more unique colors. They have a lot of more chartreuses and blacks and golds and things that maybe trout relate to, but there's something about it that's undeniable that trout do love.
For sure.
On this guy.
Yeah, they love it.
So again, just offering something a little bit different. If you guys want to extend your arsenal, this can be a great one to add in there. All right, and then another one that's relatively new to the scene that we both throw a lot is from Megabass, and this is the Megabass Dyna Response. Now, this one probably gets seen the most out of, you know, the JDM blade baits. You know, because it's Megabass.
For sure.
And so, you know, a lot of guys use it. Megabass promotes it a lot, and it's a great one. But it's important to note kind of what it's great for and what it's not as good for, right? So the same guy, Shinji Sato, that designed the Little Max, went over to Megabass to help them create a blade bait that could be kind of a universal bait. And as you look at this bait, it has a little different design to it than the other ones that we've talked about so far. You'll notice that it has dual treble hooks that come on the bait versus those dual hooks. It also has some tinsel on the back. It has 1 rigging hole, not 3 options. Okay, so they put it together exactly how they want this bait to be fished. The concept and design of this bait is for this bait to be a high flashing bait. So they want this bait to, you know, really kind of give you that flash where it's almost like a blinking effect, right? So they want the fish to see flash something, flash something, flash something, and never truly get a profile of the color. So it's designed to have a very specific motion where it's just going to flash. The tinsel is going to do 2 things. The first thing that the tinsel does is it creates a little bit of motion. So as this bait is being retrieved and it's vibrating, that tinsel is going to have that little undulation. But the other thing that it does is it's very common in blade baits when you cast, because these things are so small and compact, that when you throw them, a lot of times this back hook will actually wrap around the line. And you don't really know it until you start trying to jig it, and it's like, it feels, it's fucked. And you wind it back in, and sure enough, it's coming in like this. Because that back hook wraps in the cast, right? So to try to eliminate that, so you could maximize, you know, every cast, they created this tinsel. So it's basically, like you called it, it's a weed guard for your line. In essence. So as this starts to move, if your line hits it, it basically rests on it and prevents that hook from going up and over. So you're going to basically get to utilize every cast that you make with this thing. Really, what I find with this is that this works great on a straight retrieve.
100%.
I find that they smoke this thing on a straight retrieve. I find that for like jigging and stroking options, I fall to the OSP more.
Too. Okay. Yeah, I prefer that V hook when I'm hopping it off the bottom. But if I'm, schoolers, this is where this bait shines for me, is schooling fish. They're way out in front of me, they're busting, I can make a bomb cast and I can reel this thing as fast as possible, and it's gonna be super tight and flashy. It's gonna stay true, and I choke it, man. That's the best one for me on, if I wanna keep it as fast as I can, that's the one.
Yeah. The other situation I found this thing works really, really well is if you fish a lake like we were in Wisconsin a couple months back, and the lakes are very sandy. Very sandy bottom. There's not really a lot of snags down there. You could take a bait like this and you could literally just kind of crawl it right through the bottom, but keep it retrieved. You're not worried about these treble hooks really snagging on wood or things that we would normally worry about when we're kind of stroking and jigging them. And it works great. And I think for a fast moving bait, because there's a treble hooks, I think the hookup ratio is just a little bit better on these when you're fishing it quick. Would you agree with that?
They stay hooked on that deal, and that's part of the concept. I think he sat down and thought this through, and this bait requires treble hooks, for the way it works.
Right. Yeah. So again, there's a 1/4 ounce, there's a 3/8 ounce, a 1/2 ounce. So you got multiple sizes. There's a ton of colors.
Lots of good colors.
Yeah. So this is definitely going to end up in your guys' box as well, especially if you like fishing these on a straight retrieve. So this is from Megabass. This is the Dyna Response. Okay, let's talk about kind of the last one, and this is one that I don't fish a lot. But we both have been kind of utilizing this from time to time when needed. And this is the ISV from Lucky Craft. Now, talk to me about this dude. Here, I'll hand you one. When do you utilize this one over the other ones that we've been talking about?
So this one's going to be a lot heavier, a little bit bigger profile. So, I never really used a blade bait other than the, winter time, but now I incorporate this in my summertime fishing, ledges, again, schooling fish that are a little bit deeper, that you see on like Panoptics and not busting type deal. But yeah, a little bit bigger profile, it's heavier, you can fish it faster. It's, an option we've never had.
Yeah, so for me, this is basically just a jigging spoon replacement.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, so when I've got fish on the graph and I would normally just drop down like my, I don't know, whatever my jigging spoon is, right? My 3/4, my 1 ounce jigging spoon, and I'm just looking to just pop them. This is just another alternative for that for me. It's not, it's too heavy for me to really want to be fishing it like a lipless or, jigging it in normal places. But it works great as just a heavier jigging spoon. So it is part of Lucky Craft's saltwater lineup, but all the colors are pretty much some kind of silver or, normal freshwater colors that we would utilize. They come with good treble hooks. There's 4 different places you can put the snap, so you can get a lot of versatility out of it. So it's a good deep water option if you guys are fishing deeper water, more vertical fishing from Lucky Craft. All right, and then one more, just kind of like, it's not really a true blade bait, but it's a cool little lure that we've been fishing for the last few years. Hold that sucker up. This is the Megabass Chitala. Now, they call it a board bait instead of a blade bait because essentially what this guy is it's a blade bait type concept, but it's on like swivels. So, or split rings. So it's a multi-segmented bait that's really designed to be fished like a crankbait or a lipless, so that as it swims, it's got this kind of nice retrieve. You can certainly jig it the way we've been talking about it, but I find that on the jig that this guy wraps a ton.
100%.
So it's not one of my favorites for jigging, but it's a great one for casting, letting it get down, and then just really slow retrieving it when you need something very finessey. These guys are very light. It's 55 millimeters, 7 grams. So 1/4 ounce. So it's definitely very finessey, but I find when they get on really tiny bait and really finicky that it could be a good one as well. White bass?
White bass.
Right, you've been stroking the white bass this year.
Yeah, it's been good, man. And like, remember a couple years back we got on some schoolers that were on like this micro bait, and like we couldn't find anything that was mimicking these like little transparent like baby striper, whatever they were so small.
Yep.
And this thing shined.
Totally.
You know?
Yep. So, I mean, it's only 55 millimeters, but as it moves, these baits are making it even shorter. So really, it's probably like a 45 millimeter. So it's one of the smaller presentations that you can make. So it's a really cool one too. It's going to be more of, to me, it's a really niche bait.
Yeah, super specific.
But there are times when it can really shine. So it might be something that's worth looking into for you guys. If you're looking just to expand the arsenal. Again, that's from Megabass. That's the Chitala. So let's talk about customization.
Yeah.
So do you customize these much, or are these good enough, most of these, to just take them out of the package and fish them?
Yeah, they're really good right out of the package. The only thing I do play with is a snap. So a snap, you know, they come with a good one, but why not put a better one on there?
Yeah.
Right? So I go to the Decoy Egg Snap. That way I know, you know, I can trust between me and the fish.
Yeah, and we talked about this a little bit last night in the live stream.
Yeah.
Right? That even if you get the best snap, and I think this is the best snap.
Yeah.
You know, let me see one of these. So like the size 1.5 is rated for 40 pounds.
Right.
Like that's a really strong snap for
Yeah.
being a small guy.
Right.
It's still wire.
Yeah.
So there's only so many times you can open it, put the bait on, close it.
Exactly.
Open it, put the bait on, close it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you flex it enough times, it's going to snap.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're going back and forth from the front hole to the middle to the back to the middle to the, you know, you're doing that open and close.
Yeah. They're not good forever.
It's important to have some of these on hand.
Absolutely.
Because the last thing you want to do is finally hook a big one
Yeah.
and your snap fails.
Yeah, and you
right?
get a half a snap back.
Yeah, so these are the two sizes that you use the most?
Yeah,
the one and the 1.5.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, these are cheap. They're only a few bucks.
Yeah.
You know, so definitely add these into your box to make sure you have these.
Absolutely.
If you're going to get into blade bait fishing, it'll definitely be important to have.
It's a good tip. I learned the hard way.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some gear. I want to talk about rods,
Yeah.
reels, line. I want people to know what they're looking for when they're assembling some of this stuff.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the combo that you
Yep.
use, that you love.
Sure.
So I want you to talk about this thing here.
No problem. So, like we talked about earlier, I'm doing a lot of that stroking off the bottom, that short yo-yo. So I like a shorter rod. I feel like I'm more in tune with the technique. You know, with like a 7-foot rod, anywhere from a 6'8" to a 7-foot rod. That's my sweet spot with it. Anywhere along the lines of a medium, mag medium to maybe a medium heavy, but that's as far as I go with it. You want the rod to be parabolic, but have a stopping point, you know, enough backbone to drive those fish up from, you know, 40, 50 feet sometimes. So this is the setup I choose. Is a Conquest 843C. It's a 7-foot fast, medium heavy. And I choose, go ahead.
I was just going to say, just to talk about the length for a minute, because so often, like we've been talking about kind of yo-yoing and fishing this on the bottom like a jig,
right?
And so often it's ingrained in our minds that if we're fishing a jig, that we want a longer rod, right? And there has been this trend, you know, through the early 2000s, right, and through the 2010s to get longer and longer rods,
right?
And now we're starting to see a trend kind of going. The longer rods are there.
Yeah.
They're not going anywhere.
Right.
But we're seeing a revitalization now of shorter rods and anglers that are welcoming the advantages of a shorter rod that we kind of ignored for years and years.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why a shorter rod is so much faster is it amplifies the feel much quicker when it only has to go down 6'8" or 6'10" or 7 foot from the tip to your hand. You feel things much quicker.
Absolutely.
Versus when it has to go down 7.5 feet of rod,
Yeah.
it slows down your feel.
Yeah.
Right? So do you find that, you know, when you're fishing these style baits, are you really, the advantage for me for like a jig and a longer rod is when I'm just bombing a cast. Right? Are you finding that you're bombing casts with these, or are they more accurate, closer range casts?
Right. I'm like 40 to 50 feet away from the structure. You know, I'm just kind of roll casting out there, and it's just short little hops. Your casts take a while, but you know, you're an inch at a time type deal. Okay. You know, like when I first started doing this, same rod, but I was 903, so medium heavy, but it was 7'6". And I found like every time I would come tight on one, you know, I'm all over the place up here, and I'm like, I don't like that. I need to find a solution. You know, so I started going shorter in rod, and I just feel more in tune with what I'm doing. You know, and I just feel confident with a shorter rod.
Well, and I think it also speaks to, like, this is a very small bait.
Yeah.
Right? So if you are kind of stroking this off the bottom or like quick little jigs,
Yeah.
it doesn't take much to move this bait, you know, a foot for it to flutter back down. Like if
Right.
this was actually a dying shad,
Yeah.
right? It would just kind of move a few inches and then fall, and move a few inches and fall. It's not
Exactly.
going to move like 5 feet and then fall.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So
They don't like that.
the shorter rod as you're moving will give you the right amount of movement versus if you did that same action with a 7.5 or 7/8,
Yeah.
it's going to move this bait really far each
Ex-
time you twitch it, which isn't
exactly.
going to get you as many bites. Either.
Right. Yeah.
Cool.
When I'm moving this bait, it's short, little, you know, just little hops to the rod, you know, and then
Yeah.
I pick up my slack. Like I can get 3 or 4 hops before I have to pick up my slack.
Okay.
You know, because I'm just barely inching this thing across the bottom.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then with reel, what are you finding gear ratio wise works best for you?
Gear ratio 7, you know, something in that middle of the range. You don't want something too fast. You don't want to pick up all that line, you know, but you don't want something too slow because sometimes I've had them, they grab it, you know, and they start swimming towards you. So you want to be able to get tight with them. Something a little bit smaller that fits in your hands, more comfortable because, you know, you're just kind of doing this all day long. That bigger reel kind of gets in the way. So,
Right. I know you're a Steez guy.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, you're bougie.
yeah, a little
but
bit.
it's all right.
Right?
Yeah, good to have the best stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, just something in that smaller profile, 7-to-1.
Yeah,
guys are good.
this setup right here is the deal.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We kind of went through the store and found some other options. 'Cause,
Yeah.
you know, some guys they bleed one brand or the other.
Right.
So this was just kind of a high-end JDM option
Yeah.
that would be badass. It's
Absolutely.
the total right action for this technique. This is
Yeah.
the Megabass Destroyer Evoluzion. This is the Shamrock. So this
Yeah.
is the F466. So it's a 6.5 foot. Again, it's got enough power down here in the butt section, but it has that nice kind of bend through the middle that you want to keep them
Yeah.
pinned. So this could be another solid option.
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
Here's an option that we've been playing with that I really love for the smaller
Yeah,
blade baits.
that
If I'm
quarter.
throwing that 1/4 ouncer, this one has been
Yeah.
amazing. It handles the 3/8 well. It gets overpowered at 1/2 ounce.
At 1/2
I wish
ounce.
it did 1/2 ounce better, but
Right.
it doesn't.
Yeah.
But if you guys are throwing a lot of the smaller ones better, the Destroyer P5 in the Z-Crank Elseil is an amazing one. It's designed to be a crankbait rod, but
Yeah.
because it's P5, it has that nice backbone in the bottom section, so it works out really, really well. It has that right action for that little small stroke, so that could be a
Absolutely.
good one as well.
Mhm.
And then another one, if you don't want to jump up into the $500-$600 range, you don't want to be super bougie.
Right.
The Jackall Poison Adrena. They make a 7.2 medium. It's the perfect action.
Absolutely
Yeah.
correct.
So it's got that nice parabolic bend through the middle. It's got, you know, enough power. It's beautifully designed. It's light.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to drop it. But that's another great solid option
Yeah.
for you guys. But really important that, you know, you choose the right rods. If you go
100%.
too stiff,
Yeah.
you're just kind of ripping it too far.
You
You're
just can't do it.
Not landing them. You
Yeah.
go too soft, you're not ripping it enough, right?
Right,
So
yeah.
it's important to have the right rod for this technique.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about line really
Yeah.
quick. What are you using? Saw that you brought a couple of lines with you.
Yeah.
Trade me. I'll take that rod.
Okay.
Talk to me about these and why you choose which one.
So this is my starting point, 12-pound sniper. It's kind of what I learned doing it with. Super abrasion resistant, it's great. It's, you know, holds up. This is my starting point. Some of those smaller sizes I like to downsize a little bit, but I don't like that 8, and you know, I don't like those really small sizes. I want anywhere between a 10 or a 12. Because it still is a reaction bait, you know, so you want something with a little oomph if you get a big one. You know, you can catch big ones doing this. So sometimes I go to that 10-pound shooter, smaller diameter, a little bit more abrasion resistant, have a little bit more confidence in this guy. But this 1-2 punch, you can't go wrong. Shooter, sniper, 10 and 12, and you're golden.
Yeah, so basically the difference, if you guys aren't familiar with the Sunline lineup, sniper is what we choose most of the time because it's the easiest casting fluorocarbon.
Yeah.
It's very limp. So for a bait like this that you're making a lot of casts, you're throwing all the time, it's just a really universal line.
Yeah.
The shooter is going to be a little stiffer, and that's what makes it a little bit harder
Yeah.
in this size line. And this is important because these are essentially like $15 bills
Yes.
that we're throwing on the bottom, right?
Yeah.
You're throwing a $10 bill to a $15 bill down on the bottom,
Yeah.
fishing it around rocks and trees.
Exactly.
You don't want to go cheap on the line
Yeah.
and lose too many of these.
Exactly.
Like, you want to get most of these back.
Yes,
Right?
you do.
So this would be a great 1-2 punch, you know, for you guys. But I find too, like that 12 pound is like the sweet spot.
Yeah,
And
that's
then I'll
the
go
deal.
down to 10 when I need to downsize and really just have a little tighter vibration.
Yeah,
on there.
for sure.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, that is a wrap. I hope that was insightful. Dude, thank you
Yeah, of
for
course, man.
joining
Thanks for having
and
me.
sharing information.
Yeah.
You know, if you guys have any questions, shoot us a question down below in the comments. Jeff will leave links to all these products in the description as well, so you guys can check these out. Dude,
Yeah.
appreciate it.
You got it, brother.
Until next time.
Yeah.
I'll let you get back out on the water.
All right, sounds good.
Until next time, guys. Thank you. As always, thank you for the business. Thank you for watching.